Hey guys, welcome back again to the Pit Light and Smoke podcast presented by Zeal Cigar, cigarsoapbox.com, and of course, the Huddle Up Stores. More about the Huddle Up Stores. We're coming to you live from the Huddle Up Stores studio. I cannot wait to tell you more about the Huddle Up Stores and our main sponsor here. But with that said, we've got an incredible show for you today. I'm smoking some good cigars, talking with some good buddies today. We got Money Guy Dale here, along with my co-host, JB, right across from me. JB, say what's up to the people. You're always working on the board.
What's going on?
You doing good? What's going on?
What's going on?
What's going on? What's going on? JB is absolutely cold today. He's very, very cold, and Dale is. Are you cold a little bit?
No, it feels no. It's nice.
Okay, it's nice and easy. Okay,
all right. Good. Feels good.
I just want to make sure. Thank you. Okay, I just want to make sure. But we're going to be talking about a kind of an interesting subject today because we're smoking some good cigars and we're talking about a ton of different things. But this will be an interesting topic because Dale kind of brought it up to me a little bit. And I thought it was great because Dale's the money guy, Dale, and we want to talk about some stuff about money and everything. But this plays into it because it's something that's kind of heavy on things that you've just seen this past week. So I'm going to ask Dale to actually introduce the topic today. And by the way, if you guys want to ever contact us at the Cut Light and Smoke podcast, we probably should show you what we're smoking, by the way. So I'm going to show you real quick on my camera right here. I'm smoking the this is the Cayman Cigar Company's what cigar is this, JB?
I think that's the number 2.
This is the number 2. I'm smoking the number 2. Very, very good cigar. And Dale, what are you smoking?
Smoking the Cuban Imposter.
Oh, the Cuban Imposter. One of the best cigars that is Cuban-esque that you could ever smoke. And JB is trying to do something with his camera right now. He doesn't understand what's doing.
It just won't.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry
Mine's
about
called the Monarch.
The Monarch.
Yeah, it won't.
It's all right.
Whatever.
It's all right.
Cinematic view is weird.
It's all right. So we're filming this on all these phones and iPads and everything else like that. So hopefully you guys can hear us okay and see us okay once the final edit is done. But we talk about something today. I'm actually drinking, a Four Peaks, kilt lifter. So if you guys know anything about kilt lifter here in Arizona, it's a local beer. And it's a little bit of my throwback to my Scottish roots, a little back to my Scottish roots. I'm like maybe a quarter or maybe an eighth Scottish Irish, something like that. I'm not sure, but we'll get into it nonetheless. So when it comes down to it, we talk a little bit about the Dale, the topic for today. I thought it was interesting that you mentioned this and that you want to talk about this today because I'm pretty excited about it, but I don't know how many people will be excited to talk about it because we're talking about something that's not as real popular, but it happens to everybody. Go ahead.
So is it what we talked about on the phone?
On the phone, yeah. On the phone.
So I think maybe the easiest way to explain it is I've heard a couple of situations this week where, and this is totally on the faith spectrum, right?
Right.
Okay.
You're talking about God.
Talking about God. And specifically, like where God decides to show up, if that's how we want to look at it, versus where God doesn't.
Okay.
Decide to show up, and
okay.
So it's typically situational, like in the events of the I think. The way I posed it to you was in the event that they've experienced a natural disaster.
Okay.
And they made it through okay, with their possessions and their health and all. And so God totally showed up and that's great. But people right down the street leveled.
Right.
So
lives destroyed.
Yeah. So God showed up here, quarter of a mile down the road, God didn't show up. Maybe he was too busy, arms couldn't reach that far, whatever it was.
So God's not fair. Well, why is the question? Why is God not fair? Is that the question?
I don't think that's the question. I think it's just. I think it. To me, it's. I'm not asking why God is not fair. For me, it's. I'm interested in how people see what I called to you distributive justice of God.
I thought that was a great statement, actually. Distributive justice of God. And so if you ever had anything like tragedy happen, it really is cold back here. I just felt really cold. If you ever had anything like tragedy happen in your life, or I'll call it unjust tragedy. Somebody died before their time. Somebody was killed, murder, violence, act of violence, things like that. And those things happen all the time. And in my case in point, it's happened to people in my family. It's happened to other people before. And so when that happens to somebody, you're asking the question, why this person and not that bad person? Why does the good person, who's seemingly a productive person in society, have tragedy? And then why does the evil people just continue on with their, plunder and everything else that they do, And so what do you think, JB?
Well, it's kind of funny, right? Because there's a couple statements that came to mind. One of them is like, they always say only the good die young,
Okay.
right? So it kind of gives you that that thought process of like, well, if I'm good, I might die young. But if I do, hang out with cry with the sinners and laugh with the saints,
Mm-hmm.
Is that how the song goes? I'm
That's
trying
a nice
to remember.
Billy Joel reference. Yeah.
I'm trying to remember how
Yeah.
it goes. But yeah, no, I think like it's interesting because I look at that and you think, good guys finish last, right? Like that's another statement, right? Like there's a lot of statements that try to not push you to be that way, right?
So here's my question. I think that as human beings, us trying to derive what is good, right, and true, is somewhat difficult, especially in our society, if you would, because morality is definitely changed, and the
Well, I mean, if you want to stay
standards.
biblically with it, going back to Adam and Eve, we have never proven that we can handle it, dude.
well, no, that's a fact.
We've never proven we can handle it.
And I think that's a good point because when you're talking about what's good and right and true, we're looking at that through the lens of a very imperfect balance because we're human. So if we subject that to the divine, the divine will see that significantly differently than we are, which is the whole, God works in mysterious ways. His ways are not our ways. All that fun stuff.
Sure.
So what's good, right, and true to me is through a very selfish, sinful kind of
Veil.
worldview.
Yeah, it's a veil.
Yeah.
It's a sense of where. First off, let's just say this: all humans are subjective. We all know that.
Yeah.
Everyone's subjective, meaning that you look through your lens, I look through my lens. Therefore, if you want to know anything of why anything happens, you have to have an objective view behind it. You just do. That's where God does come in, and he has an objective view. The problem is, for human beings in particular, that's not our view. It's not our view, and we don't like the fact that maybe his view doesn't fit in with our views. That's the main problem of society today, quite frankly, is that God's views don't align with our views, so we rebel against what God wants to do what we want to do. That's both by active rebellion and passive indifference, meaning like we definitely do actively rebel. We give God the finger and go do what we want in regards to whatever that may be, okay? And then there's also passive indifference where it's like, man, I know what I should do that's good, but I don't do it anyways because I'm lazy or I don't want to. Yeah, that kind of thing. Whether it's going by somebody that helping somebody you can help and you have the means to help them and you don't, or it's just simply paying a nice compliment to somebody and you don't, either way or something like that. So there's good stuff that's innately good to human beings. We all know about it because I believe the Bible actually says that eternity is written in the heart of every man. So like,
and you could look at that as good karma, bad karma if you wanted to, right?
Yeah,
like
you could, but I don't agree with
just
that.
just to paint a picture. Yeah, I know you. Yeah, just to paint the
karmatic
picture.
people irritate me.
I know, but
so does
I'm
astrology
using it
and
as a
everything else, but-
visualization.
So let me add a layer to unless you're going to finish a thought.
But that's just my thought is that I think part of the reason that we can't get this are that we're frustrated by the process of when something happens to us that we feel, and you're talking about very, very subjective people feeling like something that happened is unjust. You know what I'm saying? Like we're very subjective, but what happened is objective. Like for example, my house didn't get hit, but my neighbor's house, who's a better dude than I, did get hit. What happened? Or something like that. I'm like, my life has been tragic free essentially, but this person like does all the right things, makes all the right moves, and their life is an absolute walking hell.
See, but I've heard it differently. So it's actually the story goes differently. It's that I was spared because I am prayed up and all that good stuff. And my neighbor, boy, they don't go to church or they're backsliders or whatever, so they got smashed. And I
Okay.
Interesting.
So you're saying from the person's perspective, because they're doing good, God spares them.
Yes.
And God gets the bad guys.
And
Yes.
they're persecuted. They're looking at it as people were persecuted for not being believers.
Yeah, for not being
essentially.
potentially.
So here's my
and it's almost like a C. That's why you need to be watch and pray and all that. And here's the layer I would add. Here's where this gets really interesting. If down the line of free will, okay, do we really, as believing people, do we believe that God, in the middle of free will, interferes in those situational moments with the natural order of the planets and the events and the way that our lives turn out.
My question
you
is,
want to see pastors fight right now? This is like the one question another pastor and another pastor will probably kill each other
I
over.
know.
well, as the only former pastor at the table, I'll answer that.
I'm a PK. Does that count?
No,
Okay.
never. No, you PKs just wannabes. You didn't go through the hard knocks of everything else.
That's fair.
I'm just playing. But in all honesty, I think that still doesn't work out because evil people do progress. And the righteous still. I mean, there's no checks and balances with God until the end. That's the point. And then we don't see why he does what he does until the end. And let's just take the story of Job, for example. My favorite book in the Bible. I love the book of Job. I think it's great. The issue is when tragedy happens to Job, what does he initially say? Do you remember the story?
Yeah.
Yeah. God gives and God takes away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. Right? That's what he says initially. Now, he has 3 friends that come to him during that time, and the dude lost everything. If you guys don't know this, go read the book of Job. It's an incredible story.
Possessions, family,
yeah, he
kids.
was the wealthiest man, most righteous man in all the land. Right? Lost everything. All his kids died. All his flocks were taken over by marauding tribes. And
he was hit with physical ailments.
Yeah. But that wasn't until later. That wasn't until later.
True. The boils,
it was
right.
just he lost everything first, and then God and Satan had this this conversation.
They had a wager, if you will.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, it was really interesting because first off, God brings up Job. Satan didn't bring up Job. God brought him up. So that's an interesting thing to think about. Like, do you want God to bring up your name in front of Satan? Because if that doesn't really go well, we see biblically. Because if he does, he's putting you on the hot roaster right there.
Well,
know?
yeah, and I mean, and Satan was very clear that he had been traveling to and fro and could not find a soul he couldn't corrupt, and God said, "Have you tried my servant Job?"
No, he didn't. So go back to that because I'll take you to task on the text. That's not what he said.
Okay, go ahead.
He said,
I haven't been to Sunday school in
that's
a long
okay.
time.
I know. I'm a stickler for biblical theology. So
Do it.
What he did say is, I'm going to go in to and fro in the earth and back and forth in it. That's exactly what he said. Didn't say anything else. Not trying to corrupt anybody or anything like that. That was put in later on by other people. But he just said, basically, when God is asking Satan where you've been, I think he's insulting him because he used to be right next to God.
Right.
Okay. And he's like, look what I've done to the place. What do you think, Luce? What do you think, Lucy? Lucifer? What do you think? And so he's asking him, he's insulting him. Then he brings up Job. And then Satan knows exactly who he's talking about because he dialogues immediately with God about it. And he says, have you not blessed the guy? Have you not given him everything that he has? And what happens as a result of that? And God says, okay, fine. Take everything away from him. I mean, to sum it up, take everything away from him. But you can't touch the man. Okay? You take everything away from him, but can't touch him. All right? So that goes the way it does, and Job still remains faithful to God. And then the next time Satan comes again, God says, what about Job? And Satan goes, skin for skin. The man will give up everything, including his faith, for his skin. He will. He can't suffer. And God says, okay, do what you want. Don't kill him at that point, right? I'm summarizing this, but you can go ahead and read this in Job chapter 1, 2, and 3. And essentially what ends up happening, Satan gives him these great boils. Imagine the biggest pimple cyst you've ever had in your life all over your body from head to toe, even on his feet. And at one point it says that he's cutting himself with pottery and rolling around in ash or putting ash on there. It's actually an ointment to soothe the pain that he had. And he had 3 friends to come and visit him. And you can see in the story. And initially the friends did the right thing when that happened. They came and they just wept with him. Sometimes, like, I don't know if you guys ever had tragedy before, but like, when you have tragedy to a certain degree and you just can't stop weeping because it's so bitter, the only thing you can do, I don't know if you've been around tragedy like that. I have several times. The only thing you can do with people is one of the best things you can do with people, and that's just weep with them. Mm-hmm. You don't try to explain it. You don't try to God's in control it away or anything else like that. The feeling that they're in, you just deal with it with them, and you feel the same thing. Sometimes that's one of the best things that friends can do for each other. And so that's what ends up happening. And then after that, they turn from friends into theological neatnicks and questionnaires. And that's one of the worst things about religious people, okay, of which I'm not one, all right? So I believe in the gospel. I believe in Jesus Christ, and I go to church. I'm actively involved in my church, but I'm not a religious person. Religious people want to take the fun out of everything, trust me, okay? And here's the other thing. What ends up happening, essentially, is they start asking Job, what did you do to piss off God? What did you do? And they just go into and the rest, I mean, up to like chapter 36 or 37, I mean, that's the majority of the book is Job defending himself against the friends. Now here's the hard part. Ready? This goes back exactly to your point. Job literally believes at some point in this that he deserves an answer from God. He deserves some kind of answer for what's going on. And quite frankly, none of us can blame him. I mean, just as a human being, we all look at that and we all understand, like, none of us can blame him for this. It's harsh, it's rough, it's terrible. Why, God, are you allowing this?
That's our natural tendency,
Right,
in
100%.
any kind of for some people, trivial setback, but truly in times of deep and, I mean, absolutely soul level deep agony, crying out to your Creator. And with the question of why, because that's the human essence. We can't understand it. We can't see beyond the moments of where we are. So the question is why. I need to know why, because I need to rectify this in my soul, and it can't be healed in that moment.
Yeah. Yes. And so rarely does this happen, though, because like in the book of Job, I think the book of Job probably is the very first book of the Bible ever written, by the way, because the Bible's not in chronological order, just so you guys know.
Right.